Hey everyone, this is Valerie Meekum, and I am so excited to be talking about poetry. My interest began as a little girl and has only grown as an adult. Why teach children poetry? I've asked a few kids recently if they like poetry, and the responses were about 50-50. Some liked it and some did not. For those who didn't like it, they found it boring and they didn't understand it. For those who did like it, said, "It's funny, it's easy to read, it makes me think, and it helps them to feel creative." Did you know that poetry offers many developmental benefits for children, such as creative language skills, creativity, writing skills, self-expression, and the development of natural rhythms? The book I chose is A Foot in the Mouth, Poems to Speak, Sing, and Shout, selected by Paul B. Donesco and illustrated by Chris Roska. This is a collection called an anthology. Among the poets and authors are Lewis Carroll, Patricia Hubbell, A. Milne, William Shakespeare, and Walt Whitman. Do you recognize those names? In looking at the criteria for poetry, I will be showing some examples from this book. In lively rhythm and meter, which this book is full of, I turn to the poem Come Drum by Avis Harley. Notice the repetitive lines. Come drum, sound out the day, or roll out your rhythms and sway us away. Repetitive lines make poems easier to read and gives a pattern for the structure of verse and helps the flow go more quickly. This poet also adds words that kids can relate to, everyday words that they know, like heartbeat, roaring, fireworks, pulse, that helps the kids relate to this poem. Sounds and language. I chose Pasta Parade by Bobby Katz. This teaches children of the different types and names of pasta. Do you recognize these pastas? Is one of these your favorite? Are there some that you don't recognize? In introducing children to language, this poem expands their understanding of different types of pasta, and it helps them pronounce them correctly by using other rhyming words. For example, kids know spaghetti, so being able to pronounce tortellini, fettuccine is a little easier for them. Next, sharp images and words. When I think of sharp images and words, I think of words that hit me or strike me differently than I originally thought of them. For example, in this poem, A Tomcat Is, by J. Patrick Lewis, he gives many human characteristics to a tomcat. For example, night watchman, caretaker, a master, bandit, dude, or grouch, giving us a new way to look at a tomcat. Next, stirring scenes of action. In this poem, just the image alone will get you stirring. In this category, it mentions that the poem should have some sort of conflict, a stirring scene of action. This poem, called Anna Elise by Anonymous, takes Anna from one mishap to the next. Notice how the author takes the last word of the line and begins the next line, taking us from one mishap to the next, kind of in a circular motion. Challenge has to be my favorite category. I have to admit, I do like a challenge. And I have got a great poem to challenge you. The Loch Ness Monster's Song by Edwin Morgan doesn't use words, but it used the sounds of letters to make for a challenging read. In fact, I challenge you to pause this video now and try to sound out this poem. How many of you have the boom, poem, boom, poem stuck in your head? Relatability. I want to read straight from Donna Norton's description from our reading. It says, It is no secret that everyone likes poems that they can relate to. Because children's experimental base is a little smaller, they like poems that they can relate to, and adults need to be a little more careful to pick poems that have familiar experiences for children. Pushing children into poems with situations they haven't yet experienced can be frustrating. Thinking back to those kids that I'd asked earlier that did not like poems, I believe this is the reason why. Maybe they had poems they didn't understand, that they could not relate to, so they didn't like poems altogether. In this poem called Favorite by George Ella Lyon, she describes a corduroy coat that this woman loves. Do you have a favorite coat that you love? Do you admire it? Maybe it's a little funny looking, but you don't care, it's comfy. By using a coat, we can all relate. We've all had an article of clothing that maybe we loved, that was our favorite. This is something kids can relate to. Next category, delightful. May I also add meaningful or thoughtful? As an adult, I have come to seek these types of poems as it gives me understanding of the world around me and purpose in my own life. This poem, Where It Began, is a recollection of the poet Charles R. Smith Jr.'s father. He remembers the first toy ball his father gave him and the time they played it together. This is a beautifully written poem that pulls a little bit at the heartstrings. Again, why don't you pause this video and read through this poem? It is worth it. Last, rereadability. And as we have been given permission to read from the book, I will read Squirrel and Acorn by Beverly McLaughlin. Where's that nut I hid in the fall? Bad news, can't recall. Must think, try hard. Somewhere in the yard? Look here, look there. Bad news, nowhere. I'm here below, just under the snow, off to the right, well out of sight. He can't recall. Then I'll grow tall. Could be a tree. Good news, good news, good news for me. Finally, I want to put a little plug in for the illustrations in this book. They are from Chris Roshka, who is a Caldecott Honor and a multi-award-winning illustrator and author. His style has been labeled as quirky and satisfying. He calls it simple and childlike. In this book, he says that he always used quality material, such as in the decorative paper that he tore and placed among his drawings and the characters. He also added that he looks to the way a child draws and makes simple forms with a spontaneous rough structure with lots of bright primary and secondary colors. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have a great week.